The return to the Petaquamscut. The crossing from Aquidneck Island was quiet. The war had silenced the woods. As the small boat bumped against the mainland shore, the air smelled of salt and damp earth. But as they moved inland toward their old clearing, the scent changed to old ash and rot. Samuel walked ahead, musket in hand. Not because a formal war was still raging, but because the peace was fragile and the wolves had grown bold in the absence of farmers. Mary followed, carrying a few precious sacks of seed corn saved from their time in Portsmouth. The site of the homestead. When they reached their land in Kingston, they didn't find a house. They found a cellar hole filled with charred timbers. The Narragansett forces, in their retreat, had burned nearly every English structure to the waterline. Mary stood at the edge of the blackened clearing. In Portsmouth, she had lived in the shadow of other families, surviving on rations and the charity of the town. Here, standing on the scorched earth of the Petaquamscut Purchase, she was a landowner again. The awakening of the earth. While the scent of old wood smoke still clung to the blackened stumps of the clearing, Mary did not wait for the house to rise. Before the first hearthstone was laid, she was on her knees in the dirt. Her fingers, calloused from the lean years of war, pushed deep into the soil. She had carried seeds in the hem of her skirt like gold, dried peas, medicinal tansy, and the precious kernels of corn. To Mary, the garden was a promise. Every weed she pulled and every row she leveled was an act of defiance against the chaos they had fled. As the sun warmed her back, she could almost hear the hidden life beneath the frost, waiting for her to call it forth. The ring of the axe. A short distance away, the rhythmic thwack of Samuel's axe echoed through the valley. He worked with a silent, iron-willed intensity. He wasn't just building a shelter. He was carving a fortress for his legacy. He squared the heavy oak beams with a broadaxe, his muscles aching with the weight of their future. Every peg he drove into the timber was a vow that they would never be driven from this land again. A mother's heart. Inside the temporary bark shelter, a different kind of building was taking place. Elizabeth sat by the small, flickering fire, the heavy family Bible open across her lap. Beside her sat Peter, his eyes wide and reflecting the flame. Though Peter was not of her womb, Elizabeth held him with a tenderness that bridged any gap of blood. She traced the letters with her finger, her voice a steady hum against the wilderness outside. In the beginning, she whispered, teaching him that even out of darkness, light could be spoken into existence. She loved him with a fierce, quiet devotion, shielding his spirit from the memories of the war with the stories of the prophets. To her, Peter was the finest crop the family would ever grow. The strength of the daughters. Nearby, Mary's daughters moved like shadows of their mother. They were the heartbeat of the homestead. One hauled buckets of sweet water from the spring, her breath misting in the cool air, while another gathered the stones Samuel unearthed, piling them high for the future chimney. They worked without complaint, their laughter occasionally breaking the heavy silence of the woods, a sound that signaled to the birds and the trees that the Tefts had truly come home. By the time the moon rose over Kingston that first week back, the foundations of the house were set, the Bible had been read, and the first row of Mary's garden sat waiting for the rain. They were no longer refugees. They were the architects of a new Rhode Island, bound together by a love that was stronger than any fire. Mary watched Peter sleep, and with a deep grandmother's love in her eyes, she saw the image of her son, Joshua. Mary began the next entry into her journal.
The smoke had died in Kingston's woods. The blackened earth was cold, but Mary brought the summer seeds, wrapped in her apron's fold. She did not weep for timber lost, or walls the fire had won. She put her palms against the dirt and called upon the sun, while Samuel swung the heavy axe. To square the white oak beam, he built a floor for weary feet, a roof to house the dream. With every strike, a vow was made to keep the hearth fire bright, to forge a home from wilderness. Before the fall of night, in the hush of evening's shadow, with the Bible on her knee, Elizabeth sang the ancient words to the child who sat so free. For Peter was her heart's own son, the harvest of her soul. She taught him hope and holy light to make a spirit whole. And in the rows of greening life, where Mary's garden grew, the daughters worked the stony soil. In boots made wet with dew, they carried water, gathered wood, the strength of hand and mind, the bridge between the old war days, and the peace they'd come to find. From Portsmouth's shore to Kingston's hills, they walked the narrow track, with nothing but their sturdy love, to bring the future back. Now, let the Taft name ever stand, like oak and granite gray, for those who planted hope in ash, and turned the world today.